Chair Drazkowski, you announced in the Property Tax Division last week that you would be holding a series of listening sessions around the state on property taxes, and followed up with notifying members bipartisanly of a event I believe it's this Thursday evening in Stewartville. But I'm finding out that there are several others that have been scheduled that have not been noticed either to my members on my side of the aisle, and that none of these are being posted and noted for the public transparently. And I'm wondering if you could explain your process on this, and I may ask him to yield for further questions, Mr. Speaker.
The member from Wabasha, Representative Drazkowski.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, Representative Davnie. Yes, indeed, we've got a series of them we are planning, and I just actually texted my LA. I want to get an inventory of those members who are scheduled to go to the Stewartville one on Thursday. We'll be doing one in Albert Lea on Saturday, and I understand there's, I believe, 2 next week that have been scheduled, and that's on my list to communicate those similarly to the entire committee as I did the other 2, hopefully today, now that we're back from break and our other work that we are doing.
The member from Hennepin, Representative Davnie.
Will Chair Drazkowski continue to yield?
He will.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, I'm a little confused on the process. You'd indicated that there's a limitation of 8 members attending these because of quorum issues. What's your process for selecting which 8 get to go? The chaplain was very good today about reminding us that we do our best job when we, in a large definition of we, together work collaboratively, but given that members on my side of the aisle are not being noticed to these meetings, and the public is not being noticed to these meetings, what is your process for choosing which 8 members of the legislature get to attend these hearings, and what happens if a 9th shows up?
The member from Wabasha, Representative Drazkowski.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Representative Davnie, as I mentioned, they are all being scheduled, and as we had discussion, I will be communicating with you those members who do sign up. It's first come, first serve, and as a matter of fact, for the first one, Representative Davnie, I don't know exactly who has all signed up yet. I think that it's 3 Republicans and 4 or 5 Democrats at this point from our committee for the first one, but I'm not sure. But we will stay in contact as I have committed to you, and now that we're back from break, we will be able to get you the information on the additional ones that have been scheduled as well. By the way, Mr. Speaker, if I could, the decision was made, as we discussed, for these meetings to not be official meetings of the committee. We intend to not have a quorum there, so it's important that we don't have a quorum because we didn't notice the meetings and we don't plan to notice them. There will be no money from the taxpayers used to pay for our mileage there. We will be attending them at our own expense, and not only members of the committee but other members of the legislature that are not on the committee are also invited, certainly. As a matter of fact, I know at the Stewartville location I think at least 2 senators will be there as well, and so it's really an open invitation. Most of the publicity about these are happening locally, realizing that they are local meetings to the local folks, and so I am working directly with the members in those local areas to encourage them to get the word out about these meetings. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The member from Hennepin, Representative Davnie.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I don't want to drag this out, but the more we go, the more confused I get.
He will yield.
Thank you. So, Representative Drazkowski, now that you've invited everyone, what happens when that 9th member shows up? You've indicated that there's a firm limitation on only 8 members. I know, my schedule is fairly, well, to use former Governor Palenti's term, fluid. And some days I think, well, I can't go, and then suddenly my schedule changes. What happens when that 9th member either contacts you ahead of time and says they want to attend, or shows up? Do you have that awkward conversation that you got to leave? And why not notice the public about these on the official website so they know that they have an opportunity to come here and speak bipartisanly to members?
The member from Wabasha, Representative Drazkowski.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Representative Davnie. Your final question, I think that is a good one. Certainly an oversight. There's no reason we can't notice the public on the House website, and we should do that, and we will. Your other question about individual committee members, it's really only, we don't want to violate House rules, and we've made a commitment to do that. And when you and I talked, I thought we had that commitment, but I want to talk to you about that afterwards. But we want to fully respect the House rules and try to make this work in a way that we can informally gain as much feedback from the people of Minnesota about the business of the legislature, and in this case, the business of the property tax area, to the extent we can, while perfectly following the rules of the House. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The member from Hennepin, Representative Thissen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Point of parliamentary inquiry.
State your point of parliamentary inquiry.
Representative Drazkowski talked about some kind of informal meeting, or I think they've named it an unofficial meeting of the committee that they're going to be having, and I'm wondering under what rule of our House that he's trying to, apparently he's trying to be consistent with some kind of rule. I'm wondering what rule Representative Drazkowski is operating under.
Representative Thissen, it's my understanding this is an unofficial meeting of the committee outside of our rules, but you can certainly ask Representative Drazkowski a question if you need further information.
So, Representative Dowd, another point of parliamentary inquiry.
State your point of parliamentary inquiry.
I mean, we for 2 years we talked a lot about transparency in government, and you made many speeches on the floor about that. This seems to be a fairly untransparent first step that the new majority is taking. But I guess one of my questions is, Representative Drazkowski raises this issue about 8 members being there, and if there's 9 members, apparently they reach a quorum. Is that, I guess my point of parliamentary inquiry, is it the point that they want to avoid meeting a quorum? And I guess my second question of point of parliamentary inquiry, if I can do two at one time, is to follow up with you as a ruling as the Speaker on if, in fact, something, you know, a 9th member of the committee actually shows up, what is the consequence? What takes place at that point?
Representative Thissen, Rule 6.21, the second paragraph, a majority of members of a committee is a quorum. If you need further clarification on what's happening at these meetings, I might invite you to ask that question to the chair.
Mr. Speaker, I'm sorry, I couldn't hear what you said.
Under Rule 6.21, a majority of members of a committee represents a quorum. It's the second paragraph.
Mr. Speaker, point of parliamentary inquiry.
State your point of parliamentary inquiry.
So, thank you. I knew that. My question is, what if a 9th member actually shows up? So does that create a quorum at this meeting? And then what is the consequence of that if a quorum is actually present?
This is not an official meeting of that committee. It's my understanding, and you should probably question the chair on his intent, that there is going to be no official business conducted, that it would be a listening session.
So, Mr. Speaker, point to parliamentary inquiry. As I understand, Representative Drazkowski is limiting it to 8 members because he doesn't want to get a quorum. But if a 9th member actually shows up, that creates a quorum, which seems to me it would create an actual official meeting of the committee. And so I'm just trying to understand what the consequences of that are.
Representative Thissen, I believe that this rule in the rules applies to an official committee meeting and requiring a quorum to conduct business. I don't believe this rule. I believe this rule is silent on whether or not, obviously there's places, where we all meet that are not advertised, where more than the half of the members show up. As long as business is not conducted, I don't believe that it violates our rules in any way.
So, Mr. Speaker, one more point of parliamentary inquiry.
State your point of parliamentary inquiry.
So, this is actually a meeting being called by the chair. So, these other things like One Minnesota, more than people show up, but that's not, official business if that's what you're talking about. But this is a meeting actually being noticed and called by the chair as an unofficial meeting. I guess my point of parliamentary inquiry, tell me if I'm right, if what you're saying is correct and they invite just less than a quorum, but more than a quorum shows up, actually every committee of this House could have unofficial meetings all the time, and we wouldn't necessarily have to follow our rules at all. Your exception that you just ruled on basically creates an exception that swallows the rule. So every single chair here could just not post a meeting so the public can find it on the website, but send an email to members and say, we're going to be meeting at this date to talk about the specific subject matter of this committee. I mean, that seems to me to be even probably the least transparent process that we've had in this body in 50 years. So am I understanding what you just ruled on the parliamentary inquiry to be correct?
That is not correct. This is not a meeting of the committee, and this committee will not be conducting business at that said time. It's a listening session that the chair is having out talking to Minnesotans, and if you have further questions about what he intends at that meeting, you may want to ask him that question. But there will be no business of the committee conducted on that day, regardless of whether a majority of the committee shows up or not.
So, Mr. Chair, or Mr. Speaker, one more point of parliamentary inquiry.
State your point of parliamentary inquiry.
So even though this is a meeting being called by the chair about property taxes, that's not actually an official meeting of the committee. So that all these overviews that we're doing, or if Representative Anderson takes her committee on a tour of the Capitol, but the point here is that the reason we have official meetings, it seems to me, and tell me if I'm wrong, I guess this is my parliamentary inquiry, it seems the reason we have our rules about giving official notice is so that the public knows that these events are going to take place. But if there's somehow a distinction between a committee, well, I guess my point of parliamentary inquiry is, what's the difference between the business that can be done at an official meeting and the business that can be done at an unofficial meeting?
No business can be conducted at an unofficial meeting. If there is no meeting, no business can be conducted. That's what we're talking about. If it's a posted, advertised meeting where a quorum is present, and that's what's required to have a meeting is a quorum, that's what the rules talk about, then business can be conducted.
And I guess, Mr. Speaker, one more point of parliamentary inquiry.
State your point of parliamentary inquiry.
It sounds like we're going kind of down an Orwellian hole here. But what I would say is an unofficial, what I'm asking, I guess, the point of parliamentary inquiry is, I get that an unofficial meeting, business can't happen. An official meeting, business apparently can happen. What is business what's the distinction between how we know when business is going to happen? It seems like a listening session where people are coming forth to talk about property taxes, the top subject matter of this particular committee. I don't know how we would ever know what's official business and what's unofficial business. Can you let me know what that is?
Representative Thissen, this is a listening session where they have invited the public to come to the meeting and talk about the issues they care about. The committee will conduct no business, which is take no official action, make no motions, anything of that sort.